Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another episode of MAXCast, the podcast where we sit down with inspiring leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals who are making impact in Canada and beyond. I'm your host, Syed, and joining me today is my co host, Omar. He's a talent acquisition expert at Trillium Health Partners. Together, we are excited to welcome Jahanzaib Ansari, co founder and CEO of Knockri. Jahanzaib founded Knockri after his personal experience in hiring bias during his own job search, then evolved this company into Canada's leading AI powered hiring platform, helping organizations making more equitable hiring decisions and creating better opportunities for talent from all backgrounds. Today, Knockri works with major organizations throughout North America and has become recognized leader in responsible AI and future of hiring. Today, we will discuss his story, entrepreneurship, faith, leadership, and what it really takes to build this company and that's creating a meaningful impact. Janzib, welcome to MaxCast. It's great to have you with us. How are you doing today?
Thank you for the opportunity. There's a great organization. I love what you have, done in the community, and I'm just a huge fan as well. It's an honor for me to be here today alongside yourself and a dear friend all the way from Saudi Arabia, Omar Osmani.
Jahanzaib, from childhood kids, from NC all the way to grown up adults, I am thrilled. And Syed, thank you for that warm welcome. Looking forward to this conversation. We get an opportunity to sit down with Jahanzaib. This is going to be fun, folks. Thank you.
Let's start with the beginning. Can you guys share about the childhood you guys had together?
Honestly, Syed, it's such a well-placed question. It almost seems like a place on earth that doesn't exist anymore.
I think you have worded it extremely well. And I have to say is that I think our childhood was phenomenal. And as you said, Omar, we had the pleasure to grow up in a beautiful community in Saudi Arabia with awesome facilities. And I think as a child, when we were 7, 8, 9 years old, having swim club, having Pilates, having soccer, and having this diverse community of Americans at that time in the compound was such a great experience. And I feel like a lot of that initial sort of community and that like belonging has shaped how we would like to live in the future. And I've realized that those formative years were so critical on what we want out of a society.
You think back to how far we've come. Our community had all sorts of people around us. We're talking about diversity, and look at the song that you built. Knockri is to promote diversity, and we bring that foundationally back to who we are.
I think it gives you good foundation, but you still have the immigrant fire when you come to Canada that you want to build something better. That's what I've seen with folks who have came from Middle East to do more and create something bigger. And hence we have Knockri, and you get so many different people doing great things in the community.
Segue nicely is that it wasn't just a diverse community, it was actually inclusive as well. We have diversity even in Canada, but I think the real challenge is if it's inclusive or not, right? To say is that diversity is just being invited to the party, and inclusivity is when you all dance together. And so I think that's some of the challenges as it comes to Canada in general, leading up to the inception of Knockri as well, and some other ancillary challenges around that. And I'd be happy to dive into that.
My question was mainly from the point of view of being an entrepreneur. There are a lot of paths you could have taken, right? There are people who come here, become doctors, engineers, especially from our community. Given your background and your experiences, I know you had the personal challenges, but were you always entrepreneurial? Did you do other entrepreneurial projects before Knockri and small scale projects, anything like that?
I grew up with a terrible stutter. I used to stutter quite a lot. So my ambitions were sort of limited. I was like, I'm going to be an individual who might just sit like behind a computer and not do anything, right? And is not going to be able to be like customer focused or client focused. And then when I had moved to Canada, I realized that no, there's a way out of this, and going through years of speech therapy and understanding pretty much how to learn to speak again in a sense. And then growing confidence over that, I think was tremendously helpful. I got together with a a buddy from high school actually, and we started a custom tailored suit business.
I remember this, Jahanzaib. Sorry to interrupt. I remember this, dude.
Those were good times, and it was a great experience. His name was Jahanzaib Ansari, and he's still a good, dear friend. I had another co-founder whose name was Zarana. We had started this company, and we were on Bay in front. So we had a studio over there. We ran this for about 3 years. It was successful, a lot of learnings. And I felt like I wanted to do something a lot larger than a brick and mortar store. In fact, the suit that's about 13 years old is from Darzi.
No.
If you see any of my suits, 95% of them are from my last company.
I absolutely love your story. I tell people that come to get career coaching from me that you need to figure out what you want to do and you have to have a calling in life. Why do you want to do it? You have to get your life and look at your own path. You went from here to Saudi Arabia to back to here. I love the names that you come up with. Like the Darzi. Darzi quite literally translates into tailor. And Knockri, I was calling it Knockri, and I didn't even know what it was. And then I met Jahanzaib, and Jahanzaib's like, it's Knockri. And for the viewers that don't know, Knockri quite literally translates to job. I appreciate about Jahanzaib is that in your story is that you're operating in a Canadian and US based environment. You're working with big multinational companies, senators, and government, but you haven't forgotten about your roots. I just love how you've gone back and forth, and I love the suit. I remember sitting with you, and you're like, "Yeah, I got a suit business." I kind of wish you still had that connection because I gotta wear suits every day. So I'd love to see Darzi again.
I need to revamp Darzi again.
Yeah, we have.
I love your names, Jahanzaib. Like, you have so many avenues you can go in, but alhamdulillah, the passion, the background still retains, which stands out to me throughout the work that you're doing, right? Alhamdulillah. These are good things to think about.
Syed, as you were saying about the journey, I had left Darzi. It was great. And my co-founder bought me out and he was still doing it, which is fantastic. And then I tried to do something else. I went to Dubai for a month and a half. I ran through all the money that I had. I was actually trying a specific solution at that time. It was creating drinkable water from just the humidity. And so that heavily failed. And now I came back to Canada, very broke, trying to figure out what I'm going to do with life. And I was applying to jobs and I kept on applying. I still have like great experience because I did work at a lot of companies. I worked at Bell, at Air Canada, Apple, or a bunch of other organizations. I would barely hear back from employers. And I was very confused to what's going on. So I asked one of my friends, I said, "Oh, what do you think the problem is?" And he said, "Hey, man, you just have a long immigrant ethnic sort of name. And you got to anglicize it to Jason or Jacob or Jordan." And literally, when I did that in 6 weeks, I got a job. I just felt like there's so many skilled Canadians that are probably being overlooked unfairly in the hiring process. And so that is the time I got together with my co-founder, Faisal Ahmed. In 2015, he was doing his master's in AI out of nowhere at UFT. And I just reconnected and I said, "Hey, man, like, I know you'll get a great opportunity at Microsoft, at Google, etc. But what do you think about this?" And he said, "Oh, no, this is fantastic." And then he came on board. I think that sparked the genesis of the company. We got together with an industrial-organizational psychologist to create Knockri, which is pretty much an AI-powered platform now used in hiring, promotions, and the training process to create efficiencies, to reduce biases, and to deliver a great candidate experience.
That's so important, Jahanzaib. As a recruiter and being in the profession for 13 years, it's not fair for anybody to have to change their name in order to be able to get a job. It's not what Canada's built on. We're built on diversity. To your point, we want everyone to dance. It's an inclusive party, right? So everyone should be dancing. So, I'm very sorry, but I just, it's so meaningfully developed from such a good spot, And truth be told, I'm from Saudi. I'm in HR, so technically I could have been your co-founder as well. But that ship sailed some time ago. What I want to ask you is, what would you have done differently if you could go back in time with everything that you know now and where AI has come to? The world has changed. Now, AI has taken off. So with what you know now about Knockri and looking at the government as a whole, where do you think you could have done things differently? Or do you feel that you nailed it?
No. Listen, if I nailed it, I'd be taking this conversation from my Learjet, actually, traveling over
You're not in
Europe.
your Learjet? Come on. I thought this was a background. I thought you were traveling and
Well,
flying somewhere.
I think there were tremendous amount of learnings, and I keep on learning on a day-to-day basis. I feel like we were fairly early to the game at that time. We have gone from an area of being fearful about AI. So back in 2016 till 2019, everybody's scared about it. COVID and then ChatGPT accelerated it. So now there's a lot more education, and now it's a lot of the adoption. And still, as part of the adoption, there's a lot of fear. If I speak to CHROs and customers and partners, including IBM, Toronto Stock Exchange, Hydro One, Green Shield, and many others now, and I think they want is this solution, is it legit? And do they have the right guardrails in place to make sure it isn't creating further discrimination or biases? And I feel like what we should have done very early on is focused on the education quite a lot more. Being in your organization, we sometimes fraud leaped on the education. The market was not there. So when I would go in and speak to the VP of talent at a large organization who has been there in that function for the past 25 years, and I come in as a 26-year-old, 27-year-old, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to come in and revamp your entire TA strategy.
Yeah.
And she's like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
I have done this for 25 years. You have zero experience in HR, zero knowledge about my organization, and I don't trust you.
Yeah.
And so I think the credibility and the trust building exercises, we probably should have emphasized on extremely early on instead of trying to be very assertive to buy our solution.
I wanted to segue into your personal belief system and values that keeps you going. There must be challenges throughout this journey as you go through this. So, in terms of faith, what role does it play in your journey so far? How do you utilize it to keep going and keep achieving the heights that you're achieving, mashallah?
I think what has tremendously helped me is just praying and making a lot of dua. I think that, and just envisioning as I'm making a dua, I'm also envisioning myself of that experience already happening, or it's occurred already. I think that type of visualization and a manifestation that I've put together as I pray at the same time is something that I use tremendously. And I don't think I've ever shared this with anybody. This is exactly what I do that's been extremely helpful. And then secondly, I would be heavily focused on the outcome, and I still am. I'm very results oriented, but my perception has changed now. I feel like if I was aggressively want something, the energy that you're putting out, it could end up repelling that. So I feel like I'm going to put it out there. I'll do my prayers. I'll make the du'as, and I'll do everything humanly possible in my capacity to control the variables as much as I can. And then if it doesn't work out, I'm like, hey, you know what? It's not meant to be right.
I love where you're coming from. I've had a realization that we can try, but the biggest planner is up there. One aspect is praying. One aspect is making dua, but one aspect is also believing that he has the best for you as his creation. So let life run its course, but try hard. But please, I would love to hear your personal philosophy, a little bit different than
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a saying that one of my friends says, we plan and then God plans.
Yes, I've heard that.
As it comes to the startup philosophy or work ethic, my early days hanging out with a lot of my friends in San Francisco changed my perspective from a scarcity mindset to a very abundant mindset of continuously paying it forward. And what I realized is that if you actually pay it forward, the Lord makes ways for you, or the universe, or whatever you like believe in out there, right? I have seen so many doors opened up where I'm like, hey, I'm just happy to help you, man. I don't care. Because there's so many individuals that have helped me who had no business trying to help me. I had a founder extremely early on, and they sold their company for about 20 billion, huge exit, right? Google X, DeepMind team. Maybe like 15 years ago, I met him through another friend of a friend, and he gave me great advice. He's so far ahead of me. He doesn't need to spend his time trying to help somebody who's just barely starting off.
Yeah.
He gave me a couple of calls to guide me, and that was tremendously helpful on how I approach fundraising, how I approach the product, how I approach certain life cycles of our solution. And I feel like that belief that I'm happy to help and pay it forward is extremely important. And what I frankly had felt is that, at least in Canada, I didn't see the same with all the founders, especially in the financial sector. I felt being transactional. If I do something for you, you have to do something for me as well. I don't believe in that. I like to give with the expectation that even if nothing comes from this, I'm perfectly fine with that because God's going to open up the doors for you. And I've seen that happen.
Johnson, you have no idea, brother. I believe, word for my life, can we just say for anybody that's listening, what Jahanzaib has shared is beyond magical. My entire life changed. Ask Syed. So much so that I do
Yeah.
what you're saying, Jahanzaib, and I live it and breathe it, where I try to help people because I could rather earn a blessing from someone and a dua from someone than a dollar from someone. Because I feel like that dua and that blessing will go so much further than that $1 that person will give me. How can I help other people out? The money will come. God is looking out for us. It's just so funny. I'm so passionate about this topic, Johnson, because as you were talking, I was like heart after heart because I'm like, if Syed can say something, Syed's gonna be like, oh, he sounds just like you, brother.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that because me and Omar had very extensive convos around that, and he, firm believer, and obviously it's a great trait to have. But yeah, Omar, continue.
You're at the forefront of helping people find work, Jahanzaib. When you look at Knockri, the promotions, the hiring, the education piece, we're controlling the bias. You've got this heart, this passion and motivation. And look what you've done with that. You're continuously helping other in our religion. And for viewers that don't know, we call that Sadqa Jariya. Jahanzaib has created a software that's going to help generationally people control their biases in their recruitment processes. Hats off to you, brother.
I really appreciate that. From that perspective, it's definitely a mission oriented organization. We want to make sure that each and every single person has a fair shot and an equal opportunity. For the viewers out there, we're not a staffing firm. We are a software. Imagine you have a large organization like an IBM. There are thousands of people applying, and it's not humanly possible for them to screen through each and every single individual. So we've created software to assess them appropriately, create efficiencies in that process, as well as reducing biases, comments, and testimonials. Candidates saying to us that I was applying for this director level role for 5 years. And when they finally introduced something like a Knockri that would try to level the playing field, they finally got that job. And for the regular individual, a bump of 10, 15, $20,000, it might not be a huge amount, but for certain families, imagine it's like a single mother of four children, and she's just trying to afford groceries. That helps them up a socioeconomic level. And that's what we're trying to do, is to elevate so many individuals that then they can prosper. And as they prosper, productivity in the country improves, and they're able to also give back to Canada and create inclusive prosperity.
I think that's a really important factor to mention, that it's not us really controlling the biases in the background, right? The software comes together and there's a portion of it that is scientifically backed to control those biases. John Zip can chime in on that, but to be clear, not an agency, it is a software. So that's what I was trying to reference in context.
I appreciate that. You're absolutely right. We have built this from the ground up with a lot of guardrails in mind. And we don't solely belief that AI can solve everything. So we have merged the practice of industrial organizational psychology. So we have a large team of industrial organizational psychologists that have a PhD in selections and assessments. Every organization we work with has very specific competencies, and the team does a job analysis and try to understand for each of the job roles. Example, you have a consultant, or in the Air Force, we have an air combat systems operator.
Yeah.
And so all the competencies are different, and we are able to assess them through short pre-recorded video questions, but candidates are solely responding over audio, and that's it. There's no faces, there's no names, and we're just transcribing a block of text, and just analyzing for behaviors that correlate to success predictors in a job role. And then surfacing that in their applicant tracking system, whether it's Workday, Success Factors, Smart Recruiters, and then providing them the ability to call in the best fit for a job interview. I had the pleasure to appear before the Senate. So as our solution is growing rapidly in the public sector and the private sector, they're curious. What is Knockri, these guys, and what's behind this? And so I think it's really important to know that each and every single decision that has been made is able to be traced back as to how it was derived, actually. And instead of having a black box of an algorithm, we call it a glass box, is where each and every single decision that is made is tracked and traced. And so you can have full transparency as it comes to that. And just the last point is, it's what we've seen is that a lot of the candidates are very appreciative if you share why an organization is using a process that is based on creating merit and equity, and also creating efficiency at the same time. And they appreciate it a lot more.
Jahanzaib, what I'll say is that I'm a very organized person. We haven't talked in some time. And what I absolutely adore about what you've shared with me is it is traceable. You've understood the job requirements, you're taking the text, you're eliminating all bias in that situation and making people look for what they want from a competency perspective, from a job posting, and look at the candidate to see if they can deliver that competency. They have a job, they have a need. Can that candidate actually do that job? And what better than to get a software that can help us do that and eliminate skin color, name. And I love that black box to glass box because it's transparent.
I just wanted to say I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here and to share some of our journey, right? I feel like if even one of the learnings, if that helps the audience, I think that, my work is done over here, right? So I'm always happy to share, give back. And, if there is somebody who's watching that wants to connect, hit me up on LinkedIn, find my name, Jahanzaib Ansari, and I'll look forward to a lot more.
I know you're super busy, but we wanted to schedule this podcast. The story that you have, and inshallah, it's just, this is just a start, maybe a new startup from another similar Urdu English names. You never know what's on the show.
We're gonna do Jute Index. We're gonna find nice shoes from Pakistan and import them.
I would say that it was the reason why, because there are a lot of folks we deal with in our space. Omar being a coach, and since I've been with Max for over 2.5 years now, we have seen more and more people coming out to our events, which is a great thing. But we also see the need to learn and gain guidance from folks like yourself who have done a phenomenal job being a Muslim, being Canadian, and helping Canada overall, not just our community, but throughout the country. But the perspective of being a Muslim, we talk about it openly because we want to showcase our value system is aligned to Canadian value system as well. But the thing that I want to share is risk and death is up to God anyway. So why are we afraid of not sharing or being cutthroat and all that kind of stuff? Those were my 2 cents. Other than that, I just wanted to wrap this up. Jahanzaib is super busy with the schedule as well.
I'm grateful for you, Jahanzaib. Just wanted to say thank you. Inshallah, let's continue the conversation. I've been in HR for a number of years. I appreciate the honesty, the humbleness that you showed up with today. Everyone has an avenue to display themselves on these casts. What stood out to me is how humble you were, how honest you were, your motivation and your passions that really drive you. That really stood out to me, and your thinking as well. I'd love to be of support of you in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. And likewise, I'm excited to stay in touch, add value where I can, and catch up in general.
Thank you so much, Jahanzaib and Omar, for joining MaxCast. Special thanks to Jahanzaib for taking time out. You always come to our events as well, and you have given us tremendous time. It's hard given your schedule, so we really appreciate that. I'm pretty sure people will learn a lot. As Jahanzaib has said, you can check out his LinkedIn and see if you have any questions. He would be happy to answer anything you want. And we are looking forward to having him back, hopefully next time in person, inshallah, if everything goes well.
I appreciate it. All right, guys.
All
Take care.
right. Take care.